Hi, my name's Michael, and I've been asked to talk a little bit more about The Year of Reading Dangerously by Andy Miller, and I'll try and hold it up without getting any glare. This is a biblio-memoir that explores a year where Andy Miller decided to improve himself, decided to make a list of books that he had originally lied about reading, books that he felt like he should have read. And he called this list the List of Betterment, and it started off with 10 books. The list came about with just one book. He picked up The Master and Margarita by Mikhail Bulgakov in a bookshop, and he read it, and he loved it, and it rekindled his love for literature. And Andy Miller is an editor, so he does a lot of reading for his work. He reads a lot of manuscripts, and he didn't spend much time reading for pleasure. He spent his commutes listening to music, playing on his phone, reading the newspaper, doing other things. But this book rekindled this passion in him. It reignited that thirst for literature and that thirst to improve himself, and that became the List of Betterment. The List of Betterment included books like Middlemarch and Charles Bukowski and Patrick Hamilton, and he read through these books. He talked a lot about these books, and eventually the list of 10 books increased. It was turned into a list of 50 books that he felt like he should have read, had lied about reading. And the book The Year of Reading Dangerously is just talking about how his opinion towards books, how his ideas and his life changed while trying to improve himself with literature. And I love that. I feel very passionate about books. I am very interested in the reading journey. I feel like books have changed my life personally. I feel like my life was a terrible mess and I was in a downward spiral. And if it wasn't for my wife and if it wasn't for books, things would have gone terribly for me. And eventually I did become a passionate reader. I became a voracious reader. I wanted to read so much, and that only happened in 2009. And my passion for literature, my interest in literature and exploring everything only started then. And I feel like there's so much to catch up on. I feel like I have a lot to experience in literature, and I would love to write my version of The Year of Reading Dangerously because I feel like I have an interesting journey and I feel like I have something to say. So I'm interested in books like this. I'm interested in biblio-memoirs. And Andy Miller I really enjoyed. I read The Year of Reading Dangerously, I think it was in 2010, maybe 2011 when it first came out, because I heard about this book in the blogosphere because I was a book blogger before Tuber, and it sounded right up my alley. And then this year I've really gotten into the Backlisted podcast, which is co-hosted by Andy Miller. And this is a podcast where they take well-known authors such as Patrick Hamilton and Jean Rhys, and they read a book that's not their well-known book. They read something from that author that they love and feel like needs more attention. And I love the pretentiousness. I love the humour that goes into the Backlisted. I had binge listened to the entire podcast. There was about 35 episodes and I caught up. I listened to them all and I wanted more. I needed more. So I felt I needed to reread Andy Miller's book because I wanted to explore more. And I love his style. I love how he balances literary critique with the personal. That's something I strive for. I like to put a bit of my personal life and opinions into reviewing books, but I want to talk about themes and literary criticism. I want to blend the two in a way that is entertaining and educational. And that's always been a passion of mine. That's always what I've been striving for because I feel like there's so much to learn from literature, and learning doesn't have to be boring. It could be entertaining, and there's always interesting ways to educate people. I feel like school didn't educate me very well. I went to a school that had a huge emphasis on sports, and it felt to me like that was what the school focused on. They didn't care about education. They just cared about how well they did in sporting events, and I feel like the school didn't really set me up in life and didn't really teach me what I needed. And it was only since becoming a reader I've become passionate and autodidactic. And I have books like The Year of Reading Dangerously to inspire me and to remind me of my passion for literature and to challenge my ideas. And Andy Miller does that in some interesting ways. He does that with exploring the ideas of reading to improve ourselves rather than reading to make our reading list better. And because I've been rereading The Year of Reading, I have been rethinking my life in terms of reading. I have been thinking about what I want to achieve. It's similar to my existential crisis I had last year, where I want to reconfirm my reason for reading, reconfirm my direction, reconfirm what I want to get out of reading, what I want to get out of my blog or booktube or life. And these kind of things really need to happen every so often, just to remind me, just to shake me up. And that's what I love about books like The Year of Reading Dangerously. If you've never read it because it's pretentious and funny, and who doesn't love that? If you're not interested in biblio-memoirs, then maybe this isn't a book for you, but I find the ones that are challenging my ideas and thinking and talking about books that I hadn't thought about reading and making them sound interesting are always the best. I like biblio-memoirs that are exploring literature in an interesting way. I rate a lot of biblio-memoirs with a low rating because I think they are all exploring the same ideas or exploring the same books. And I have this issue on BookTube as well, where I want people challenging my thinking, talking about books that I haven't talked about or don't get talked about, exploring literature in new ways, exploring booktube in new ways. And Andy Miller did that with this book, and rereading it just reconfirmed it. I love the Backlisted podcast, and I think it's my favourite bookish podcast, and I've said this before, but I wish it wasn't so focused on English literature. I wish it was more focused on world literature, but this is the books Andy Miller and people involved in the podcast are interested in, and that's okay. I have to find a podcast that explores translations, explores transgressive, explores the literature that I'm interested in, and it introduced me to that world of literature. And I hope I can find that kind of podcast, but I don't know if I can. I'm worried I'll have to start my own. And while I've been thinking about starting a podcast for ages, I'm not sure about me being it, because I'm looking for someone to do it for me so I can listen to, not me creating something for other people to listen to. And I keep thinking about this because I started my blog because I wasn't seeing the type of books that I was interested in being discussed. I started my booktube channel because I wasn't seeing the books that I'm interested in being discussed. So maybe a podcast will be a next step, but who knows? And if I ever did, I don't know how I would do it. I don't know what I would do. And I think about it, but I'm trying to avoid thinking about it because I keep wanting to do too much. I keep wanting to do everything. And that means I take away time from doing blogging, which I haven't done a blog post in a while. I take time away from booktubing, and I'm just trying to get back into the habit of booktubing. So I need to think about it. But it was just a random tangent that this book brought out in me. It's the thoughts that I've been thinking about. And I love a book that talks about stuff, challenges you and gets you thinking about your own life and maybe pushes you to make changes in your own life. So The Year of Reading Dangerously, it's not really a review, but I'm just talking about my collective thoughts on the book. Please read it because I think it's an interesting book. If you want to find me elsewhere, all my links to social media are in the description below, and as always, thank you for watching.